When was the last time you felt wonder playing a game? Not the last game you enjoyed, or even the last game you loved, but the last game that left you truly speechless. Because games like that don't come often. There's a storm of good games releasing every year. But every now and then, one raindrop hits you and it leaves such an impression. It imprints on your soul. It reminds you of why you love video games in the first place. A perfect modern example for a lot of people is The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. For reference, what it meant to be a Legend of Zelda game had been locked in place pretty much since A Link to the Past, the third game in the series. Things changed around here and there, but for the most part, you knew what to expect when you heard a new Zelda game was coming out. But then trailers for the newest ones start to surface, and it feels different. It's hard to truly convey what it was like to be a Zelda fan at the time if you weren't there yourself. It felt like they were changing so much, I didn't know what to expect. And this wasn't some bottom-of-the-barrel franchise that hadn't been seen in decades, something they could change the core of and not many people would notice. This was The Legend of Zelda, Nintendo's biggest franchise right next to Super Mario. The fact they were willing to change up so much of what it meant to be a Zelda game felt daring. It exuded confidence. You know that feeling when you see some games' marketing. It's when the developers know they have something truly special on their hands. The trailers for Super Mario Odyssey are a good example of that. Breath of the Wild had it too. It was in development for 6 years. They were slow cooking it. Nintendo was giving their developers time to figure out what worked and what didn't. And by God, did they figure out what worked. Breath of the Wild released, and it was magical. Looking back in retrospect, knowing everything I do about the game, I can acknowledge that it's pretty good. It's been nearly a decade since it came out. I realize that it has some downsides. Weapon durability was divisive. All the classic Zelda items were gone, and dungeons were a major bummer. I can be more analytical now that so much time has passed. But man, that honeymoon phase? Nothing can compete with that. Breath of the Wild felt like a generational leap. It harkened back to the openness that made the first Legend of Zelda so special. That aspect hasn't been a part of the series in forever, and they brought it back with such grace. It's weird to think that the first game was so open, and then they leaned into linear stuff almost immediately with the sequels. It took them so long to go back to their roots. Breath of the Wild felt like the quintessential video game. It was the ideal. It feels corny to even say all that. Should I build it up as this all-important piece of art? To truly let myself be consumed by emotion and declare it as one of the best video games ever created? It feels like everything is broken down into scores these days and objective things that can be rated. It almost feels naive to look at games like that. But why not give into emotion? That's what games are about to me. The emotions they evoke, and some games just truly speak to me in a way that others don't. So for the rest of this video, we'll take a look at some other games that truly instill wonder. Some of these I'm sure a lot of you will agree with, but a couple of them are some real personal picks. Maybe you'll find a new favorite today. When thinking about what makes a game feel so wondrous to me, I realized it can come from two different angles. One of them is from the production of the game, where the making of the game feels like such an achievement in and of itself. It's amazing that it even got made in the first place. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This is the ultimate one of these games for me. I just cannot believe that game exists. The series started out so humbly on the Nintendo 64 and has evolved to become this titan of the industry. Every developer wants their character to be in Smash. I remember seeing tweets and news articles some years ago that were like, indie game creator would love their game to be represented in Smash. Yeah, I'm sure they would. It's reached that point because it's a status symbol. Only the most iconic gaming franchises get represented in Smash Bros. And it's impressive that the team making the game were able to secure those characters in the first place. Older gamers in the crowd, take your mind back to before the release of Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I remember checking the Smash Bros. Dojo every day to see what new stuff would be revealed. Out of nowhere, Sonic the Hedgehog is announced for the game. That was the first third-party character announced for the series, and it just felt perfect. Sonic fighting Mario. What more could you ask for in a game like this? And then, to the genuine shock of everyone, Snake from Metal Gear Solid is announced. He's a dude with a gun. Is that possible? Can they just do that? It was possible, and yes, they can just do that. At that point, it became a marketing tactic to advertise which new characters were coming to each game. Games after that had like 5 characters that blew your mind and made you think anything was possible. Snake, Wii Fit Trainer, Cloud, Ridley, Joker, Sora. So many characters all included and playable in one game with Smash Bros. Ultimate. But where do they go from here? They cannot include all of those characters in the next game. There had to have been crazy deals behind the scenes to get some of these in Ultimate, and there's no way they'd renegotiate for all of them. I remember hearing Sakurai talk about how he wasn't really worried about what the next game would look like while planning this one. He just wanted to put everything he could into making this game the ultimate Super Smash Bros. Bring everyone back just this once and make it the most feature-packed entry in the series. And I think that's kind of beautiful. It's amazing this whole thing came together at all. Even if the next Smash game will have nowhere near this many playable characters, I'm glad they went all out for this one. I'm glad I was able to live through the hype cycle of this game, with all the DLC characters being announced. The childlike excitement of knowing that a new character was about to be revealed, not knowing which gaming legend would enter the Smash Bros. Hall of Fame. It was a beautiful time. The other angle in which a game instills wonder in me is obviously the game itself. There's a ton of different games I could choose from, one you'd most likely be familiar with, but I'm going with a more underappreciated option, because this game really does resonate with me emotionally more than almost any other game out there. Asura's Wrath. It feels like a stretch to even call this a game. It's more of an interactive movie where you watch cutscenes play out, and occasionally interject with some QTEs. I guess there are some gameplay sequences, but you're mostly here for the story. And what a story it is. It's about... Okay, I'll be honest. I don't remember much of anything about this game. I don't remember the plot, the characters, the combat, none of that. But I do remember the feeling it left me with. Awe. I was awestruck going through this game. The way it plays with scale is just unmatched. The main character Asura exhibits such feats of strength. It's absolutely insane. I don't know, I can't even put it into words really. Hold on, let me look at the source real quick. Absurd, unhinged, nonsensical. Yep, those all fit. My point here is, like I said, I barely remember any of the specifics about this game. I couldn't tell you a single detail about the plot, but the emotions I felt while playing it still remain. I wonder if it would hold up to a replay. It's been long enough where I'd basically be re-experiencing it for the first time. I would suggest you buy and play it immediately, but the only real way you can do that on modern platforms is via backwards compatibility on the Xbox. We need a remaster. More people have to experience this game. So we've went over the 2 ways that a game can really resonate with me, both in the scale of its production and the quality of the game itself. But what about when both come together to create something truly magical? That's something we'll get to in a bit. That game is special. I have to save it for last. In the meantime, let's have a brief tangent about movies. I obviously like movies, but I usually don't talk about them on the channel because it's a chore to try and show clips from what I'm talking about. I made a video on found footage movies a couple years ago, and it was a nightmare dealing with Content ID. Despite that, I'm gonna try and talk about them now because I feel it's relevant. Movies are another medium that can really tug at your heartstrings and be something that it feels like it'll stick with you for a lifetime. Thinking back to the 2 angles games impact me, movies can definitely have scale. One I was recently impressed with was Dune. Now, I hadn't read Dune before seeing the movie. I heard it was a crazy insane book that was almost unadaptable. David Lynch tried and it was weird. How could they make Dune into a blockbuster? Oh, Denis Villeneuve is heading the project? The guy that did Blade Runner 2049 and Arrival? That got me hyped. So I read the book. I wanted to experience the movie as a fan of the book, not as a first-timer. I always enjoy having that context for a remake. It feels like a more fulfilling experience that way, to me at least. Read the book, loved it, couldn't wait for the movie. And watching the movie, I was awestruck at just how well everything was translated to the big screen. It was such a feat of filmmaking that I couldn't help but love it. It reminds me of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I feel like not since those movies have we seen a group of filmmakers come together to create just cinema. This is art. It utilizes the medium to the highest degree possible. And it's like that because so many talented people work their absolute hardest to make this the best Dune adaptation possible. Back to talking about the art itself rather than the production behind it, there's a movie that really calls to me. It's an older one you might not have seen before, but one definitely worth checking out if you're willing to let yourself get lost in a movie. Big Trouble in Little China. Directed by John Carpenter. I mean, what a guy. Big gamer too. We have no choice but to stan. Fortunately, a great filmmaker as well. Big Trouble in Little China just might be my favorite movie of his. And that's saying a lot because he has a ton of bangers. The movie starts off so understated. You follow around Jack Burton, just a normal-ass truck driver living a normal-ass life. But slowly, through him, you start to discover this magical world. Elemental warriors, powerful sorcerers, ancient curses, stuff you don't usually come across in normal life. The first scene of the movie is great. It starts off with a tour bus driver, Egg Shen, talking to his lawyer about the events of the movie that are about to happen. The lawyer seems bewildered that magic could exist, but Shen is insistent. He asks how he could know magic is real. And then, so matter-of-factly, Mr. Shen just conjures electricity between his hands. It's such a unique premise. There's this whole magical society in Chinatown just outside of view from prying eyes. It makes you wonder that if you took some turns down some random alleyways in real life, you could find something like this. Maybe seemingly normal people like Mr. Shen can just do magic. There are tons of places you'll never visit. Who knows what goes on in them? Okay, obviously not magic, but this movie fosters that childlike wonder where you want to think about if it could be possible. It's quaint. The final movie I'm going to talk about combines both aspects perfectly. And this isn't really one movie, it's a trilogy. The Lord of the Rings. I briefly mentioned it earlier, but you know I have to talk about it by itself for a bit. This is truly the best of both worlds for me. Not only is it a miracle that this project came together in the first place, it truly resonates with me on an emotional level. Specifically, the Fellowship of the Ring. There's an aura to that film. The way it starts out and everything is so peaceful. For like an hour, you're just hanging out in the Shire while Bilbo and Frodo go on about their lives. But eventually, Frodo is thrust into an adventure, much like Bilbo was. He didn't ask for any of this. He tried to get out of it. But when push came to shove, he accepted the challenge and left. Just that premise, I don't quite know how to describe the feeling I have regarding it. It feels safe? Like, it doesn't challenge me at all mentally. It's just the traditional hero's journey. It's comfort food, I guess. The premise and the plot structure as a whole are super familiar, something I've seen hundreds of times before, but the way they handled it specifically for this film, with the visual direction, the music, the writing, it just all comes together to feel so cozy. The latter two films in the trilogy are great, don't get me wrong, but Fellowship is my favorite by a country mile. It tickles my brain in a way the others don't. In a way most movies don't. I'm not really a movie rewatcher, but this one, I'll sit down and give it a go every now and then. It's soft. Alright, back to games. Are you ready to hear about the ultimate video game for me? One that resonates with me on almost every level. I'm sure some of you might find this pick controversial, but hey, it's your right to think that. Let me know what game left you truly awestruck when you first played it. I want to see if there's some games I need to get playing. Anyway, the final game we're going to talk about is Final Fantasy VII Remake. The original Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite games of all time. And this isn't something I grew up playing, mind you. This is a game I only played after the remake was announced back in 2015, so I'm not blinded by nostalgia or anything. I decided to play it because I knew the remake would be a generational game. Just the words Final Fantasy VII Remake imply such a colossal undertaking. The original is a long game, and there's just so much to see off the beaten path. I hadn't played it myself, but I heard people talk about it. I knew that people loved Final Fantasy VII. The remake was a project that Square Enix would take incredibly seriously as to not disappoint those fans. To not disappoint gamers around the world with a remake of one of the most important video games of all time. So now that the remake was announced, I decided it was time to finally play the original. Like I talked about with Dune earlier, I'm just that kind of person when it comes to remakes. So I did that. I played through Final Fantasy VII and loved it. The plot, the gameplay, the music, the characters are what shined in this game for me. How good a main party is almost always directly correlates with how much I like an RPG, and the party in this game is unmatched. Literally, I cannot think of a main cast in a video game that I love more than these guys. And seeing them all so lovingly recreated like this, seeing the entire Final Fantasy VII experience remade, it's just breathtaking. If you truly surrender yourself to this game, you will feel some emotions you never thought a game could leave you with. And it's not just about the game itself, but the scale of it all. This isn't one remake, it's 3 remakes. They split the original Final Fantasy VII into 3 different games. They really stretched out the story from the original and are milking every drop of content they can out of it. Now sure, some people out there will complain about that or the way the story is going. Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth are not objectively perfect games. Don't get me wrong, they have problems that are kind of annoying. But as a complete package, they truly satisfy me. I'm glad I was around after Part 1 released, and everyone could speculate on what the next game would include. And now that Part 2 is out, we're all doing it for Part 3. After that game releases though, it's over. The full Final Fantasy VII Remake is out. There will be no more mystery or intrigue. The project kinda hit me at just the right time in my life to where it feels really special. Where it's unlike any other undertaking I've seen in gaming, and maybe unlike I'll ever see again. The original Final Fantasy VII made me feel things, and the Final Fantasy VII Remake just amplified those feelings. I was genuinely astonished playing through this game at points. I'd stop what I was doing and just look around, taking in the scenery, wondering how amazing it is that I get to explore the area around Calm on foot. How insane it is that Square Enix came together to make such a heartfelt remake, that they nailed the essence of these characters nearly 20 years later. It's a miracle, and I'm glad it's a video game I can actually play, not some hypothetical project that got cancelled 2 years into development or never even got past the planning stages. No, this is a real-ass video game that you can purchase and play through. It's a miracle. Whew, that's it. Definitely a more personal video than usual, but it's something I've been kinda thinking about for a while. We play so many games that are great, but not many that are truly amazing. It's interesting to think about the difference between those and figure out which games or movies stick with us for years. Drop down below a movie or game or show even that's really special to you. I want to see what you guys love. Thanks for watching, and see you Pretizens next time.